Well, I've been having fun recently drawing peas that are vaguely pea-like. I mean, they look enough like a pea, but they don't look like they're made of anything in particular. I mean, they might be vegetable material, they might be, I don't know, who knows what they are. And then I started doing some anatomically correct peas where they're made of body parts, dissected body parts. And then I thought of doing my calligraphic bird peas, but again, draw the bird as if it's not only run over and splattered all over the road, but sort of guts hanging out and that sort of stuff. So with two pens in hand and this lurid, no, I'm going to use this piece of paper. I filled these two pens and a pencil. I guess I didn't fill the pencil with red lead, but I filled the two pens with red. This is a new pen I bought on eBay, and I liked it because the name of the owner was on the clip and the initials below. And let's see if I can move this band around. Maybe I can't. This band is on the initials are on the back, so let's make it consistent. The person that sold me this pen is evidently his father's or grandfather's, maybe even, asked me to take care of the pen because it's been in the family for 70 some years, and I just sent him a piece of snail mail saying I would, though the pens will outlive me. I did the barrel that was in this pen was a piston fill, which I cannot fix, so I took the nib out of it. So this is the original nib that came with the cap, and the barrel was one that I had that has a lever and a sack in it, so I can actually use it. So it's a very fine point, but this is a very broad point. Well, let's just use the pencil too. So here's my plan. I'm going to draw a pea, and it's going to essentially look like a flattened, decaying bird. And I don't know, maybe I'll put the head up here this time. So the feet will be down here, and then its broken wings will be sort of thrown up that way, and a couple of feathers here and there. So that's in my little head. Normally I don't pencil things out like that, but I did just so I could say I used the pencil. The pencil that was originally owned by James Lorito, and then by his son or grandson Louis Lorito, and now by me. Maybe I should have my name changed so I match the initials. So here's the dead head, there's an eyeball, there's a throat, and the guts are just going to be all over the place here. And then we're going to have the wings come up, feathers, all fucked up. Now, there is a tradition in the pen calligraphy world of doing these calligraphic birds, and the calligraphic birds are all lovely. There's nothing wrong with them, except they don't look, as my friend Nicola Pang says, they're derpy looking birds, and I didn't know what derpy meant. I had to look that up, and that's what they are. They don't really look, they're not anatomically correct, and this one is going to be more anatomically correct because it's going to be having ribs and guts, and I know that there's bones up here that make the wings work that are connected to the large breastbone from what I remember of anatomy, but I'm not going to let anything like a fact get in the way of my having fun here. So we'll just have fun. You can watch me now that I'm done with my preamble. I was thinking of making this a blackbird or a raven, but I may not. I don't know what kind of bird this is. But it's just, as you can see, crushed and bent, broken. The flight feathers are going to be sort of going back over this way. And of course I want it to end up looking like a P as well. So it's going to have, the shape of a P. Vaguely correct. And of course, as I said, I'm not looking at an actual dead bird. I once found a dead bird on the road that I did large paintings of and sold them to a friend of mine who has a wife who was not happy with it. A huge painting of a dead bird in their living room, so it was returned to me. I didn't sell it, I gave it to him. I mean, he was able to use it. I don't think I said you can borrow it. It's very difficult for me to say the word borrow because my mother never could say it, and she would always pronounce it bower, and the children would always make fun of her because of her inability to say that word. She also couldn't say cinnamon and aluminum in Switzerland. She couldn't. I think she could say aluminum, actually. No, alululum. That's how she said aluminum. Cinnamon and Switzerland. Switzerland is how she made that word work. And we always made fun of her for her inability to say those words. But the one that was sort of weird was borrow. And I don't know, maybe it's some sort of mental thing. Maybe I have the same mental issue where there's a genetic malfunction of our part of our brain that is responsible for speech that is in charge of the word borrow. God, it's so hard for me to say that. I always want to say bower. But I will not. Lend me that. I could say that. Could I borrow that? No. Lend me. Lend me your ears. Let me borrow your ears. Well, I don't know if this is working out. This paper's weird as well. It's a glossy paper which takes the ink and sort of deadens it. It bleeds a little bit, and it also deadens the color. These are supposed to be the tail feathers here. There's the trunk with the intestines with a half-eaten worm coming out of that intestine. To be realistic here, there's a half-eaten bug, and then of course there's bugs eating these things, worms eating the carcass here. Okay, let's try the other nib for really fine lines here. This should have the same color ink, but because I had different ink in here before, This is a typical Schaefer nib that is very firm. Sometimes you can find Schaefer feather touch nibs that are flexible, that fit this kind of a pen, but because this is a lifetime pen, it has a more sturdy nib. I'm writing on it upside down at the moment to get the thin lines I want. Oops, I'm not on the page. I've zoomed in so much that you can't see what I'm doing. Zoom back out again. Okay. I don't know if this is working out at all. Maybe it doesn't have to work out. This is supposed to be some ribs. I think this one might be just a little tiny bit too chaotic. I think it would help if I actually found a bird and asked it to stay still. Just stay right there. I'll give it a little some bird seed to chomp on as I take my bicycle and ride over it. Another friend of mine found a injured bird. A bird hit her window, as birds can do, and it sort of fell on her patio. And she saw that it was certainly not going to fly again because it was too broken. It was like this, except not quite so eviscerated. But she wanted to put it out of its poor little misery. So she put it in a paper bag, crying and weeping as she did this, and brought it out to the driveway and put the paper bag under the back wheel of her Volkswagen and drove backward. Which I guess is the way to do it. My old neighbors would occasionally make lobster, and the lady of the house always hated the idea of putting the live lobster into the pot of boiling water. And her husband, a doctor, surgeon, said, well, if you don't want to do that, just stick an ice pick in its eye and scramble its brains. And she didn't want to do that. And meanwhile, her children were getting hungry, patiently waiting at the dinner table for this to happen. And they were, the parents were arguing about the best way to dispatch the old lobsters. And my friend, the youngest son, said, why don't you just put it in the garage and start the car on and just let it, die of asphyxiation with the car running. But I suspect that would maybe taint the taste of the lobster. But it would be humane, or whatever the word would be. How does that look? How's that bird pea? I don't know. Would someone recognize that as a pea? This was the start of a sentence. I don't know. There you go.